Chapter 371, The Usual. The whole event ended after about 4 hours, and currently, Yuna, Naruto, Tsunade, and around 10 ANBU were standing in the Hokage office. While Tsunade and the ANBU were directing quite a bit of killing intent at Yuna and Naruto, Yuna looked completely unbothered, while Naruto at least had the decency to have a sheepish grin on his face. Naturally, the event wasn't over because someone reached Yuna and Naruto, but because there were no more willing participants. Since no one managed to reach them, Yuna considered making the change to the Hokage monument permanent, but after Naruto's insistence, she decided that she would return it to its original form as soon. This time, you two definitely went too far. What were you thinking when you decided to play a prank that would make me mobilize Konoha's shinobi force? While Naruto looked a little guilty after hearing Tsunade's words, Yuna chuckled in amusement before shrugging her shoulders. Isn't it fine? It's not like anything bad happened. Besides, this should have been a good experience for those that have never stood on a battlefield and should have improved everyone's skills at finding traps as well. Yuna nodded in approval at her own words and decided that there was something else she should clarify. No need to thank me, and payment isn't necessary either. Boom. Tsunade's fist impacted on her table, leaving a massive dent behind, while the veins on her forehead popped up in anger. Payment? I should throw you in prison right now. Despite facing Tsunade's fury head-on, a merchant-like smile appeared on Yuna's face while she started rubbing her thumb and index finger together. Now, don't be like that, Tsunade. I'm sure we can come to an agreement that satisfies both parties. However, Tsunade only snorted in disdain when she heard Yuna's words. Really? Bribery? Do you really think you could get out of this with a bottle of alcohol? A disappointed expression appeared on Yuna's face as she wagged her index finger at Tsunade. Tsunade, you really disappoint me. Do you really think that gifting you expensive alcohol is my only trick? Do you think I wouldn't have already calculated that I would be in this exact situation before the prank even started? That I wouldn't have at least 3 strategies prepared to get out of it? Tsunade gritted her teeth so hard that they almost shattered but didn't answer Yuna. After all, she was fully aware of what kind of person Yuna was. She loved causing chaos, yes, and she appears to do many random things, but at the end of the day, Yuna is never unprepared. Even if she pushes her pranks too far, she always has something prepared to get out of the situation. Considering your constipated expression, you must have realized that I have prepared something in advance. That is indeed the case, so here it is. Yuna took out a teal ring and put it on the table, causing Tsunade's face to become deadpan. I'm not joining your harem, Yuna. Yuna rolled her eyes at Tsunde's statement and casually waved it away. What a joke. As if I would use the privilege to join my harem to get out of such an unimportant situation. Even destroying half the planet wouldn't garner such an offer. Tsunade rolled her eyes at Yuna's arrogant words and picked the ring up. She noticed that there were multiple seals engraved into it but had no clue what they did. So, what's the purpose of this ring? Since no one got hurt or physically hurt, I'm willing to reduce the punishment if this ring is worth it. An amused smile appeared on Yuna's face when Tsunade claimed that she would only reduce the punishment instead of waving it away, since she was absolutely sure that the ring was significantly more critical than Tsunade could imagine. That ring is one of the tools the Akatsuki members use to communicate with each other. I will tinker with it a little so that it is possible to listen in on all of their conversations without them even knowing about it. Oh, but I might forget how to do that if Naruto or I were to be punished for such a silly little prank. Third. Tsunade's whole body stiffened, causing the ring to fall back on the table, while a combination of rage, helplessness, and awe welled up from the 10 ANBU in the room. Rage and helplessness, because they did not doubt that Yuna and Naruto would get out of the situation completely unscathed, and awe, because Yuna yet again managed to weasel herself out of a punishment. Tsunade swallowed the lump in her throat and resumed speaking with a shaky voice. Why, you are not joking, right? This isn't just another prank, right? Yuna chuckled in amusement before yet again wagging her finger in front of Tsunaide. I am a woman of my word. My bribes may contain other pranks, but they are always what I promised in essence. Tsunaide gritted her teeth before nodding her head in acknowledgement. Although she loathed to admit it, that was indeed the case. She might occasionally receive alcohol bottles that whispered to her in an attempt to get her drunk, but the alcohol itself was always top-notch. Frankly, this weird contrast between total untrustworthiness and total trustworthiness made her crazy, but there was nothing she could do about it and only accept what she got. Yuna easily saw that Tsunaide came to her own conclusion, which caused a broad smile to appear on her face. Well, Tsunaide, how will you handle this case? What is your final verdict? Yet again, Tsunaide gritted her teeth as she looked at Yuna with hatred in her eyes. However, her gaze landed on the ring for a brief moment, causing her to take a few deep breaths. Then, a hideous smile appeared on her face that looked a little like she was about to cry. Haha, it was just a little prank after all, there is no need to take it so seriously. There will be no punishment. You two are dismissed. All right, CYA, Tsunaide. Okay, bye-bye, Tsunaide. Both Yuna and Naruto said their farewells, leaving a tired Tsunaide and 10 dissatisfied ANBU behind. Naturally, Tsunaide saw that the ANBU weren't happy that the twins got away again, causing her to smile wryly. Well, what was I supposed to do? Considering the status of those two, I can't exactly take a hard stance against them. Instead of dishing out some punishment for a prank that went too far, I would rather have a direct spy line to Konoha's greatest threat. Naturally, the ANBU knew that as well, so they didn't answer Tsunaide, causing her to chuckle in amusement. Well, if you have any misgivings, you are free to look for the twins yourself and talk it out. A shiver went through the ANBU before they quickly left the room. I love my retirement, Tilda. Tsunaide's eyebrows started twitching when he heard Hiruzen's relaxed words. That's right, retirement. I plan to stop being Hokage after my debts were paid. Why am I even still doing this job? I need to find a replacement as soon as possible. Chapter 372, Making a Deal. Hidden deeply somewhere in the Land of Fire was one of the long-abandoned Uchiha clan hideouts. In the middle of said hideout sat a young man with black hair, black eyes, and an indifferent facial expression on his face. It was clear that he was waiting for someone. Unfortunately, someone else appeared instead of the person he was waiting for. Yo, Itachi. You have prepared quite an excellent stage for your final battle. An ugly expression appeared on Itachi's face when he saw the new arrival before his face returned to its neutral expression. Why are you here, Yuno Uzumaki? I have no business with you. Geez, what's with the cold expression, Itachi? Aren't we good friends? Shouldn't you be happy to be capable of witnessing my beauty once more before you allow yourself to get killed by Sasuke? Itachi almost coughed out some blood when he heard Yuna claim that they were friends, while her last statement made his eyebrows twitch in irritation. Naturally, he had long suspected that Yuna knew more about the motivation behind his deeds than other people, but he didn't expect that she knew that he would sacrifice himself today as well. He pondered how Yuna could have possibly come to that conclusion for a short moment and then simply shrugged his shoulders. Whether she guessed it or had another source of information honestly didn't matter at this point in time. However, there was something else he was rather curious about. How did you find out when and where this fight would happen? A mysterious smile appeared on Yuna's face as she wagged her index finger at Itachi. Sorry, that's a secret. Naturally, seals were involved. Due to Hisoka's knowledge of the future, Yuna knew that this final battle would be at an Uchiha hideout, so all she had to do was search for such a hideout and install a few alarm seals in it that would tell her of Itachi's arrival. Although this was somewhat of a gamble since she couldn't know if this battle would be held in the same location in this timeline, but in the end, the gamble succeeded, giving her a chance to spectate this hopefully amusing battle. Although Itachi was somewhat unhappy with Yuna's answer, in the end, it didn't really matter whether she told him about it or not. The fact that she didn't appear to be here to mess up the situation was already more than enough to satisfy Itachi, so he decided not to probe any further. Oh well, I will search for a nice place to spectate everything now. CYA. Yuna was just about to vanish when Itachi called out to her. Please wait a moment. I would like to make a request. Or rather, I would like to ask you for a favor. A frown appeared on Yuna's face as the atmosphere between her and Itachi changed, becoming significantly more severe. While Itachi couldn't help but be bewildered by the sudden shift in mood, Yuna pondered his request and, moments later, nodded her head. Very well, you removed the Uchiha clan from Konoha, which made the life of my little brother and me a little easier while also giving me information about Danzo. Well, I tricked that info out of you, but I will count it partially due to how important it was. In conclusion, I will grant you a minor favor. For some reason, Itachi's whole body shivered when Yuna said that she would grant him a minor favor. He couldn't really put his finger on it, but he felt like he had just received something precious. Despite that, he pushed onward and started speaking. Very well, as people who are very protective of their little siblings, you, of your little brother Naruto, and I, of my little sister Satsuka-chan. Oi, oi. Hush, Kurama, can't you see how he is opening his heart in front of me? I would like you to protect her after my death. Yuna pondered Itachi's request for a moment before shaking her head in denial. No, that's too much. A frown appeared on Itachi's face before he nodded his head in acknowledgement. Indeed, protecting someone for the rest of their life is too much for just a little favor. Okay, then how about this? She only joined Akatsuki to make it easier to reach me. Can you convince her to leave Akatsuki after my death? Yet again, Yuna started pondering before she nodded her head. That's fine, but to do that properly, I will have to tell her the truth about you. Otherwise, she would be too easy to manipulate. Well, she still would be easy to manipulate, but it wouldn't be that bad. Itachi shook his head when he heard Yuna's words. If you were to tell her the truth about me, she would become an enemy of Konoha, which would pretty much guarantee that she will remain in Akatsuki. Yuna scoffed in disdain when she heard Itachi's words. Are you mocking my skills in manipulating people? If I gave it my all in manipulating her, she would leave that conversation with a patriotic expression on her face while spouting nonsense about the Wall of Fire. Itachi really wanted to dismiss Yuna's words, but he couldn't. Didn't she, as a 6-year-old, extract an S-rank secret from him while he was an ANBU commander? Now that she was older, how hard could it be to trick Sasuke into believing whatever she wanted? A 6-year-old Yuna could easily trick him when he was 13 years old. How easy would it be for a 16-year-old Yuna to do the same with a 16-year-old Sasuke? Fine, but if possible, I would like you to prevent her from becoming an enemy of Konoha as well. That's fine since it's more or less part of the deal. Itachi sighed in relief when he heard Yuna's words. Like this, Sasuke would at least not be manipulated. Well, okay, he would be manipulated, but at least he wouldn't become even more revenge-crazed. You know what, Itachi? I'm in a good mood, so I will make the deal even sweeter for you. Satsuki will undoubtedly see me as a target of her revenge as well, so I will promise you now that I will permit her 2 free tries without consequences. Well, I will beat her up, but I will not capture or kill her. Itachi was taken aback by Yuna's sudden offer. Although he had no idea why Sasuke would see her as a target for revenge, he was thankful for Yuna's offer. Despite that, he couldn't help but be a little skeptical as well. Why would you do that? I don't see you getting any advantages out of this. The moment Itachi finished speaking, he knew that he should have kept his mouth shut as Yuna's face twisted into an inhuman grin. Because I love it, Itachi. I love beating up arrogant people that ooze self-confidence. I love how their faces slowly twist from arrogance to fear to despair as they realize how utterly outclassed they are. Itachi quickly averted his gaze from Yuna's face to prevent meeting her eyes. This might have been the first time in the history of the Uchiha clan that one of their members avoided eye contact instead of seeking it. "I'm sorry I have to send this demon after you, Satsuka-chan, but this is the only way I can guarantee your safety." Meanwhile, Obito and Zetsu were cursing Yuna's existence again and again. Zetsu simply wanted to spectate the fight between Sasuke and Itachi, but he immediately ran away when Yuna appeared in front of Itachi. Obito wanted to pick up Sasuke after the fight was over and goad him into attacking Konoha, which was out of the window now. Neither he nor Zetsu dared to get too close to Yuna, so all they could do was discard the idea of watching the fight. Chapter 373, Sasuke reveals his true power. A few minutes later, Sasuke appeared in the room Itachi was waiting in, his face a mixture of hatred and satisfaction that his prey was finally in front of him. On the other hand, pure indifference was displayed on Itachi's face. However, inwardly, his emotion had gone into turmoil as soon as he saw Sasuke. Why is she back in her male form? What happened? And maybe she is shy and doesn't want to reveal her true self. Is this another weird phase? Maybe I should advise her that she shouldn't be ashamed of her true self. No, I'm in no position to do so. I can perhaps secretly mix some hints into our conversation to make her take her proper form. Okay, calm down, Itachi, you can do this. With the power I have gained, I can finally see everything clearly, Itachi. As soon as those words left Sasuke's mouth, he could have sworn that he heard a woman forcefully choking away her own laughter, but he was pretty sure that was just his imagination. Oh? And what do you see, Sats cough Sasuke? Itachi was fully aware that he chose the name Satsuki by himself, so he couldn't help but curse himself a little for almost using it. After all, wouldn't Sasuke get even more rebellious if he found out that Itachi haphazardly gave him a new name? I see you. Dead. And with that, the fight between Sasuke Uchiha and Itachi Uchiha started. However, when Yuna saw the two fighting, her eyebrows started twitching in irritation. Both of them stood stock still and were looking into the eyes of each other without moving a single step, while chakra fluctuation would occasionally ripple through their bodies. Wow, I have to admit, spectating a fight between two genjutsu users is incredibly dull. Surely they won't only be using genjutsu, right? I hope not. If they do, I will have to ask for my money back. Oh, I see another negative customer review coming. Moments later, Itachi's left eye changed from the normal Sharingan to the Manjikyu Sharingan, which managed to gain Yuna's attention. Hopefully, this will break the stalemate. Meanwhile, inside the brothers' genjutsu fight, Sasuke was pinned to a wall by Itachi. Black markings covered his whole body, and Itachi just deposited Sasuke's right eye inside a glass cylinder with a crazy smile on his face. This is the difference in strength between your and my eyes, Sasuke. And now, your eyes will become my new light. Itachi was just about to pluck out Sasuke's second eye when he partially activated the second stage of his curse seal, causing wings to sprout from his back that pushed Itachi away from him. However, before Sasuke even had a chance to retaliate, another Itachi appeared behind Sasuke and held him in a chokehold, allowing the first Itachi to approach him without a hassle. Itachi's finger closed in on Sasuke's only remaining eye, but a split second before he could harvest it, Sasuke managed to activate his second-level curse seal, revealing its voluptuous body, causing the genjutsu trapping him to shatter. Back in the real world, Itachi staggered backward while quickly swiping away the blood flowing out of his nose and wiping it under his left eye instead. Before Sasuke could notice anything wrong, Itachi covered his left eye with his hands, pretending to be in pain due to his Tsukiyomi being forcefully broken. Incredible, what power! Itachi swiftly remembered two soft mounds of flesh pressing into his body and suppressed another nosebleed by sending chakra into his nose. Truly out of this world tilde. A smug expression appeared on Sasuke, who was clearly exhausted from breaking the ability of a Manjikyu Sharingan with his normal one. He felt like Itachi's wording was a little weird but saw no reason to be bothered by it. That's right, this is the power I stole from Orochimaru. Although Sasuke made it sound like getting a curse seal from Orochimaru was somehow something to brag about, Itachi couldn't care less. I see, Orochimaru, he truly was a genius, madman. Yet again, Sasuke felt like something was weird about Itachi's reaction but wasn't sure what. He shook his head to get rid of his idle thoughts and returned to a combat stance. Well, apparently Yuna messed around with it as well, but I don't care anymore. After I kill you, it will be her turn to die. When Itachi heard Yuna's name coming up, his eyes shone in understanding as he managed to figure out the truth. So it's like this. After his first match with Yuna, Satsuki started walking around transformed into a woman, and now she even put a seal on her that made her change every time she uses a lot of her power. Yuna is clearly trying to make Satsuki realize her true self. To think she had been supporting my sister for all these years, how admirable. Meanwhile, Yuna had a slightly weird expression on her face from hearing Sasuke and Itachi's conversation. She had always been rather good at reading people, so she could somewhat guess what Itachi was thinking and couldn't help but be slightly bewildered by it. I mean, that first encounter with the female Sasuke inside the Tsukiyomi obviously dealt some damage to him, but isn't this a little too much? How am I supposed to know? You are the expert when it comes to mind breaks. True. Well, Itachi has always been a ridiculously heavy brocon with a rather weird mindset. I mean, who slaughters their whole clan just because some random mummy tells him that they will definitely rebel and that is the only solution? And who in the world tortures their little brother for 24 hours inside an illusion despite wanting to protect him? There are less messed up ways to make someone hate you. So, in the end, we attribute all of it to the usual Uchiha craziness. Might as well. I honestly don't have any other explanation right now. Excellent. Since Itachi is crossed out as well now, we finally have a full house. Of all the Uchiha we have met, or know of, not a single one is sane. I don't want to brag, but I know of a certain nine-tailed fox who has claimed so for years. Yes, you are really great, Kurama. Sigh, the Uchiha clan, how pitiful. Chapter 374, Sasuke vs Itachi. After Itachi finished his delusion, the fight started properly as Sasuke and Itachi began throwing ridiculous amounts of shuriken at each other. The shuriken bounced off of each other, resulting in a complex web of obscure trajectories, but due to both of them having a fully developed Sharingan while inheriting their clan's talent in shuriken jutsu, their contest ended in a draw. Although they are simply showing off right now, at least there is something to watch now, unlike the previous Jinjutsu stare-off. I didn't come here to watch two crazies throwing metal at each other, I want to see fire, lightning, and big explosions. Please, be patient, Kurama, stuff like that needs a proper build-up. Instantly unpacking the big moves is just bad manners. If you say so. A short moment later, the clash was over, and the duo started weaving hand signs, resulting in both of them shooting a massive fireball at each other. The two fireballs collided in midair, significantly increasing the temperature in the surroundings. A frown appeared on Yuna's face when the heatwave washed over her, and with a swipe of her hand, 2 additional ice cubes dropped into the glass filled with colorful liquid she was currently holding. Sip. Much better. Is that poison? Define poison. A liquid toxic enough that if an average human were to drink it, they would either suffer heavily or die. Oh, in that case, yep, this is poison. Sigh. The clash ended with Sasuke's fireball overpowering Itachi's, forcing him to dodge out of the way while giving Sasuke the chance to take out a huge shuriken to throw at Itachi. No. Don't go back to shuriken. Itachi took out a kunai, blocking the shuriken just as it was about to cleave into him, but Sasuke had already predicted that move and started infusing lightning chakra into the shuriken through a wire he previously attached to it, significantly sharpening it, resulting in Itachi getting cut in two. However, crows started flying out of the two severed halves instead of blood, revealing that the bisected attacher was just a clone. Really? A crow clone? That's some weird-ass shit. Well, Orochimaru had his snakes and Itachi has his crows. That's just their style. Apparently, the real Itachi evaded Sasuke's attack by jumping on the roof of the building and was swiftly followed by Sasuke, who did the same. Yet again, the duo started weaving hand signs, and yet again, two fireballs clashed in midair. Although Itachi's was overpowered again, he didn't dodge this time and instead closed his right eye for a brief moment. When he reopened his eye, the pattern of his Sharingan was changed, and in the next instant, Sasuke's fireball was engulfed by black flames. Oh. Amaterasu, wasn't it? The black flames that burn even other flames. Things are finally getting a little flashy. Yuna nodded her head while dropping another ice cube in her drink. Hot and steamy. As soon as Sasuke saw the black flames, he started running in an attempt to prevent Itachi from focusing his eyes on him, which would result in him bursting in flames. While running, Sasuke activated his curse seal to increase his speed. Although he managed to flee from Itachi's attack for a short while, causing the surrounding forest to be covered with black flames, Itachi finally managed to catch Sasuke, resulting in one of his succubus wings bursting into flames. Due to having the Amaterasu activated for such a long time, blood was flowing out of Itachi's right eye, which nicely pulled into the blood that was already coming out of his nose due to a different reason. Jiggle physics and stuff like that. Usually, getting caught by Amaterasu like Sasuke just did would be a death sentence, but Sasuke learned under Orochimaru for almost 3 years, so he naturally had some weird tricks up his sleeve. His front burst opened and another Sasuke exited it, like a snake shedding its skin. Although this technique costs a lot of chakra, it was still preferable to getting burned to death. But if you use Orochimaru's self-birthing technique, you should at least do it all the way and birth yourself out of your own mouth. How impudent. Sasuke started shooting more fireballs, forcing Itachi to dodge all of them frantically. However, since Itachi still stood on the roof, while Sasuke landed on the floor after his self-birth, all the fireballs vanished into the sky. This, combined with all the fire jutsu that have already been used and the burning forest in the surrounding, caused rain clouds to form, and moments later, it started raining. A small roof out of ice formed above Yuna, shielding her from the rain. As I said, hot and steamy. Indeed, and it seems like it's finally time to take out the big guns. Yep. Sasuke's power will crash into Itachi with a violent thrust and cover his whole body. Sure, let's go with that. Lightning chakra started covering Sasuke's hand, and moments later, he heavily swiped it down, resulting in a gigantic lightning dragon descending from the sky, engulfing Itachi's whole body, while resulting in a deafening explosion. Oh, nice and flashy. Not bad, not bad. However, despite the brutal attack, Itachi was unhurt as a massive skeletal structure covered his body. What did Hisoka call that again? Susan. Pretty weird name for a technique, but who am I to judge? Pretty sure it wasn't Susan, but whatever, I couldn't care less. Itachi started walking towards Sasuke with small shaky steps while still being covered by the skeletal structure. Naturally, Sasuke tried resisting, but no matter what he tried, he couldn't pierce through Itachi's defense, and moments later, he was pressed against a wall with fear clearly visible in his eyes. Itachi lifted his hand, making it look like he was about to pluck out Sasuke's eye, but instead of doing so, a kind smile appeared on his face as he tapped his finger against Sasuke's forehead. Itachi could feel the last vestiges of his life force leave his body, and he was about to fall over when he remembered the appearance of Sasuke's second stage curse seal and that Yuna was responsible for it. His life force reignited for a brief moment, and he threw a meaningful gaze towards Yuna's location. Yuna noticed Itachi's gaze, shrugged her shoulders, and then gave him a thumbs up, which resulted in another meaningful nod from Itachi before his life finally ran out, and he collapsed. I'm honestly surprised that he found me. I consider myself to be pretty good at stealth and wasn't expecting him to find me. One more down tilde, two to go tilde, soon they will all be gone tilde. MHH tilde must be the Tao of Siscon. Oh well, not that it really matters. Two to go tilde, two to go tilde. Oh well, time to manipulate a psychologically damaged young man who just killed the person he loved the most. This will be fun tilde. Chapter 375, Sasuke's first free attempt. A small groan escaped Sasuke's mouth as he slowly lifted his eyelids. He looked around and noticed to his confusion that he appeared to be in a vast training hall instead of the Uchiha hideout where he killed Itachi. A small smile appeared on Sasuke's face when he remembered Itachi's death. Despite not really understanding how exactly Itachi died, he was still satisfied. Slurp. Sasuke's smile turned into a frown when he heard the sound of someone loudly sucking on a store, and after looking around some more, he noticed Yuna casually sitting on a desk with her legs swinging around and a colorful drink in her hand. Yuna noticed that Sasuke woke up and pointed the plastic straw in her drink towards him. Yo, slept well. You want some poise or coffee? I mean, you want a drink. After the nagging of a certain fox, I even reduced the alcohol content to something an average human might not die immediately from if he is lucky. At first, Sasuke was still confused about the current situation, but after a short moment, his brain rebooted and he took action. Die. Sasuke activated his Sharingan, started his Curse Seal level 2, coated his hand with lightning chakra, and charged at Yuna without a second of hesitation. However, Yuna was relatively unbothered by Sasuke's behavior and rolled her eyes at him while casually putting down her drink. Very well, I will count this as the first free attempt. Yuna caught Sasuke's lightning-clad hand while getting up from the desk, spun around Sasuke, while still holding his arm, pulled his hand to redirect his momentum, pulled him above her, and then smashed his back onto the ground. The moment Sasuke hit the ground, ice shackles grew out of the floor and encased Sasuke's hands and feet, preventing him from moving. Following that, Yuna proceeded to happily pummel the immobile Sasuke while humming to herself and occasionally taking a break to take a sip from her drink. Naturally, Sasuke was cursing her the whole time until he fainted. A while later A loud groan escaped Sasuke's mouth as he slowly lifted his swollen eyelids. He didn't really understand his current situation, but what he knew was that his whole body was in pain. He grubbily looked around and noticed that he was currently seated in a vast training hall. Slurp. Sasuke heard the sound of someone taking a drink and looked at the source of the sound and found Yuna in the same position she previously was in. Yo, you ready for a drink now, Sasuke? At first, Sasuke wanted to attack her immediately, but before he could do so, he remembered what had happened a few minutes ago. He decided that he would rather not get another beating. What do you want from me? Where am I? Currently, we are in one of the many underground training grounds of the Uzumaki clan, and personally, I don't want anything from you, but Itachi asked me for a favor in regards to you, so here we are. When Sasuke heard Itachi's name, he immediately got ready to pounce on Yuna again, causing her to roll her eyes. Why would you do Itachi a favor? Did he ask you to kill me in case he fails? That's a personal matter and of no importance right now, and no, he didn't ask me to kill you. Besides, if he did, you wouldn't be alive right now since I had plenty of time to get rid of you while transporting you to Konoha. Although Sasuke wasn't happy with Yuna's words, there was nothing he could do about that since he had been unconscious for quite a while and would have been an easy target. So, what kind of favor did he ask for? Although Sasuke very much doubted that it could be anything good, but right now he was in no position to get out of the situation, so he might as well listen. He wants me to make you quit Akatsuki while not becoming an enemy of Konoha. That confused Sasuke. Since Itachi betrayed Konoha, shouldn't he prefer for there to be more enemies? And why would Itachi care about him being part of Akatsuki or not? Naturally, Yuna could easily see the confusion in Sasuke's eyes, so she took another sip and started her explanation. Why would he do that, right? That's what you would like to know, huh, Sasuke? Although Sasuke was slightly annoyed by Yuna egging him on like this, he still obediently nodded his head at Yuna's questions. Hehe, in that case, I hope your body is ready to dive straight into the abyss, Sasuke. You sure you don't want a drink? By now, Sasuke's eyebrows were twitching in irritation due to Yuna constantly evading what this was really about. Get to the point already. Yuna lifted up her hands in a pacifying manner while still having an amused smile on her face. Fine, here we go. Yuna flicked her wrist, resulting in a small black scroll with S-rank and confidential written on it to appear. She casually tossed it towards Sasuke, who quickly caught it in midair. An S-rank mission that was simultaneously made an S-rank secret. Nasty business. Give it a read. Sasuke pondered for a moment how Yuna managed to get her hands on something that clearly should have been locked away somewhere in a high-security archive, but decided that wasn't his problem and that there certainly were other people who could waste their time thinking about it. What are you waiting for? Open it up already. I even went out of my way and got the original for you. It took me almost 1 whole minute to break into Konoha's archives and get that scroll for you, so you better be grateful. Yet again, quite a few questions and concerns appeared in Sasuke's head, but before he could think too deeply about it, a drop of whatever Yuna was drinking splashed on the table she was sitting on, causing it to produce small sizzling sounds. Sasuke gave the tiny drop that was currently eating its way through the desk another glance while doing the same for Yuna, who just took another sip and nodded his head in understanding. He took the scroll, opened it, glanced at it, and immediately closed it again. Why is it a picture of a bunch of naked women kissing? Yuna looked at Sasuke in confusion and started rummaging through her pockets, and moments later, she pulled out another scroll. Oops, wrong scroll. Chapter 376, The Truth About Itachi. One might wonder why Yuna would carry around a scroll that was filled with a picture of a giant all-female orgy. Well, okay, considering who we are talking about, it is not that weird for her to have something like this with her, but she actually had a genuine reason. Despite being the leader of Konoha's most prominent clan, Yuna still does the occasional mission if it interests her or if someone asks for her directly. In this case, a rather shameless person, who would like to stay anonymous, sneakily created an S-rank mission to acquire this artwork from the Land of Lightning, and since Yuna never acted as an art thief, she became curious and took the assignment. As for people who have the knowledge, power, and skill to sneak an S-rank mission under Tsunade's nose without being found out, well, there are really not that many in Konoha, making the culprit rather obvious. Impossible. This has to be a lie. While Yuna was contemplating about her mission that was interrupted by Sasuke and Itachi's fight, Sasuke started reading the scroll Yuna gave him. It contained a report about Itachi revealing that the Uchiha clan was going to rebel, the mission that resulted out of that in which Itachi was supposed to kill all of them preemptively, the after-mission report, and, most importantly, a statement that Itachi was only willing to do it if he was allowed to keep Sasuke alive and protect it. All of this painted a relatively clear picture of Itachi. He was a man willing to sacrifice literally anything to keep his little brother safe. No, he, in fact, did sacrifice everything he had to do so, and even cashed in a favor from Yuna to extend that protection even beyond his death. Naturally, Sasuke couldn't believe any of that. Since the Uchiha clan massacre, he pretty much spent every waking hour hating Itachi with all his being, so there was no way he could suddenly turn those emotions around from just reading a little report. What is the purpose of this? What do you want to gain by lying to me about Itachi? Yuna, seemingly unbothered by Sasuke's screaming, simply shrugged her shoulders in indifference. That's precisely the point, Sasuke. I can't gain anything from you by telling you all this. Well, it's me we are talking about, and I do get a kick out of messing with people, but I would have made up a much more amusing story if I were to try that with you. So, the only conclusion is that everything written in that scroll is true. Bullshit. Sasuke snapped and was about to crush the scroll, but before he could do so, Yuna snatched it out of his hand. Easy there. As I have said, this is an original. Do you want me to waste even more time by forcing me to create an authentic fake? However, Sasuke was barely listening to her as he held his head in pain and was about to start hyperventilating. Naturally, he didn't believe everything written in that scroll yet, but doubts certainly started appearing. Little things during his multiple conflicts with Itachi that seemed somewhat weird started popping up in his mind. Like a little muscle twitch and the occasional glance that seemed to be filled with concern. Things he previously overlooked due to his anger. Yuna noticed Sasuke's state and decided that now was a good point to continue the conversation, so, with a wide grin, she pushed onward. Well, think about it, Sasuke. Wasn't Itachi pretty weak? His punches, his speed, his jutsu. Do you really believe that someone who can defeat the whole Uchiha clan would be this weak? Sasuke snapped out of his panic attack and looked at Yuna with wide-open eyes. He started thinking back on the fight, and a few things indeed seemed somewhat weird. For example, why could he so easily push back Itachi's fire jutsu with the same technique? Could there really be such a massive gap in skill between them? Although Sasuke was arrogant and prideful, but being able to outclass Itachi in fire jutsu to such a degree seemed weird now that he thought about it. His Sharingan was activated throughout the whole fight, so he had no trouble remembering even the smallest detail, so after only a short moment, he realized the point that stood out the most. I can understand that his eyes were bleeding due to overusing them, but why was his nose bleeding? Was Itachi sick? Yuna coughed awkwardly before giving Sasuke a sage-like nod. Indeed, Itachi was very sick. That revelation dumbfounded Sasuke. While he fought tooth and nail to squeeze out a victory, his opponent already had a foot in the grave. However, Sasuke shook his head to get rid of the idle thoughts. How and why he won against Itachi wasn't the main point right now. There were other questions to ask. Why? Why would he do that? What was the purpose? Why keep me alive? Why endure the pain of his illness and fight me just to die in the end without achieving anything? Yuna chuckled in amusement at Sasuke's desperate questions and resumed talking. You still don't get it, Sasuke. Everything he had, he sacrificed it for you. Everything he did, it was all for your sake. He lived the life of a traitor who killed his whole family just so his little brother could live. Frankly, I don't like his methods, but that's beside the point. The truth is that Itachi loved you more than anything else. As soon as Yuna finished speaking, Sasuke's face became blank. His memories went to the gruesome day when Itachi slaughtered the Uchiha clan, but this time, instead of sneering at Sasuke in contempt, Itachi's face was twisted in grief as a stream of tears flowed out of his eyes. Only now did all the little things he previously missed click together, and he could finally see the whole picture. Tears started flowing out of his eyes as he held his head in pain. Moments later, Sasuke shouted out his grief, and an ear-piercing roar echoes over the training field. Yuna nodded in satisfaction, took out a mirror, and held it in front of Sasuke's lower head. And now, it's time to reveal why Itachi insisted on getting killed by you instead of his illness. Sasuke heard Yuna's words and looked up in confusion, but instead of looking at Yuna, he saw his own image in a mirror. His eyes widened in shock when he saw that his Sharingan was not only activated, but it actually looked different from before. The Manjikyu Sharingan. I see, I got it after killing the person I loved the most. My older brother, Itachi. Sasuke probably didn't even notice that he started calling Itachi's name more affectionately than before while he was still looking at his new eyes in bewilderment. What incredible power! It's like I have reached a completely different level than before. With this power, Sasuke's facial expression changed instantly and turned into a hatred-filled grimace. Die. Amaterasu. Meanwhile, Yuna noticed Sasuke's change in mood and rolled her eyes. Very well, I will count this as the second free attempt. Chapter 377, Sasuke's Second Free Attempt Part 1. Just when Amaterasu's black flames were about to appear, a small piece of ice formed between Sasuke and Yuna, blocking Sasuke's view. Black flames engulfed the ice piece, but one of Yuna's ice chains pierced into it before it could melt, sending hundreds of minuscule seals into the ice. The burning piece of ice started glowing, and moments later, the black flames were sucked into the ice while the ice clump turned into a perfectly round, transparent sphere with a tiny black ember burning inside it. While Sasuke was utterly dumbfounded that his Amaterasu was blocked so effortlessly, Yuna grabbed the still floating sphere and started inspecting it before nodding in approval. Instant Amaterasu. Or maybe one-shot Amaterasu. Meh, since it can only be used once, I'm not interested in giving it a proper name. Besides that, are you interested in starting a business, Sasuke? I'm sure that there are quite a few shinobi out there that are interested in a one-time use tool that engulfs the target in Amaterasu's flames when thrown at someone. Sasuke opened his mouth, kept the position for a short moment, and then closed it again. He had no idea what he was supposed to say to what he had just witnessed. Naturally, Yuna was not someone who needed the other person to actually answer her questions to hold a conversation, so she happily continued talking. Nah, that won't work out. Since these require my ice and your eyes to make, we would have to spend time together making more, and there are like hundreds of things I would rather do. While Yuna was talking to herself, Sasuke managed to get out of his stupor and decided to resume his attack. Yuna might have blocked his Amaterasu, but he could still feel more power dwelling in his eyes, which meant that his confidence and arrogance were still burning brightly. He used Amaterasu yet again, but this time, his other eye got involved as well and directly manipulated the black flames to spread out and surround Yuna's current position. Yuna sighed deeply when she saw Sasuke continuing his assault. If he had stopped, she would have been willing not to count this as his second attempt, but that chance was out of the window now. Ice started rising around Yuna, contesting with Amaterasu's flames. Amaterasu was a fire that could burn everything, but Yuna's ice had a similar feature. Just like Amaterasu, it kept growing endlessly until everything was frozen. 3 years ago, after Yuna killed Danzo, Tsunade feared that the snowstorm Yuna left behind would never stop growing, and she was actually correct with her assumption. So, right now, endlessly burning flames and endlessly freezing ice were clashing with each other, pushing back and forth without the other party gaining any ground. However, despite seemingly being of equal strength, Yuna's ice was created through her will alone, while Sasuke actually had to sacrifice some of his visual prowess to start his fire, so it was evident that Sasuke couldn't continue like this. He unsheathed his sword and approached Yuna at high speed, ducking and diving through the clashing fire and ice while fully activating his curse seal, causing Yuna's eyes to widen in surprise. Damn, the pattern in his eyes actually turned heart-shaped after transforming. Really? Really? Are you seriously pretending that this has nothing to do with you right now? Cough, sorry about that. Sasuke slashed down his sword, but Yuna blocked it easily with an ice sword that materialized out of nowhere, and moments later, the duo had already clashed dozens of times. Really, Sasuke? Swordsmanship? Against me of all people? It seems to be working rather well. I don't see you handling me as easy as your words make it out to be. Is that how you perceived our clashes? Very well then. Yuna's sword started changing mid-clash, becoming longer, bigger, and covered with an intricate network of finely carved ornaments. The moment Yuna and Sasuke's swords separated, Sasuke could instantly feel that something was wrong. While previously he could easily follow and predict the movement of Yuna and her sword, now everything was obscured. It felt like everything around Yuna was captured by his Sharingan's abilities except Yuna herself. All those tiny movements his Sharingan would usually capture, process, and remember no longer pulled into his mind. As if a baby's eyes could trace my swordsmanship. Before Sasuke could understand what Yuna meant, she moved again, seemingly not faster nor stronger than she previously did, but despite that, Sasuke was instantly driven into a corner. Strong shinobi relied on predicting their enemies' movements even if they didn't have the Sharingan to help them, so now that Sasuke couldn't read Yuna's actions at all, he had to react the moment he saw Yuna move, which was usually already too late. Reading and predicting your enemy's actions heavily depended on the experience of the people fighting. Naturally, someone with about 3 to 4 years of actual combat experience like Sasuke stood absolutely no chance against Yuna. And so, bloody gashes kept appearing on Sasuke's body, every little cut reducing his confidence and arrogance a little more. Additionally, the fact that Yuna's clothes were unruffled while she had a leisurely smile on her face didn't help improve Sasuke's condition either. Another clash happened, but instead of continuing the fight, Yuna and Sasuke separated and stood opposite each other. Well, you can always put away your weapon and accept your beating, Sasuke. Sasuke's frown deepened when he heard Yuna's words. Considering the mess with the Tacha, he didn't have any time to think about his current situation yet. But now that he had an idle moment to think about it, something certainly was weird. I attacked her with the intent to kill, but it seems like she is entirely unbothered by that. Heck, she even knocked me out after my first attack, so she had all the chances in the world to kill me for trying to kill her. Why didn't she do it? Is there another promise between Big Brother and her? Yuna noticed the gears in Sasuke's head turning and patiently waited for him to finish his thoughts, and a few seconds later, Sasuke opened his mouth. When I attacked you the first time, you said something about the first attempt, and after I attacked you the second time, you mentioned a second attempt. What is that about? Did you make another deal with the Tacha? Yuna nodded in acknowledgement after hearing Sasuke's words. Correct. Since I knew you would try to get your revenge on me as well and would very likely attack me the moment you see me, I gave Itachi another promise. Since me killing you would defeat the purpose of Itachi's request, I promised him that I would allow you 2 attempts to get your revenge against me without any consequences. Obviously, you are currently on your second attempt. Sasuke widened his eyes in surprise when he heard Yuna's words before gritting his teeth in anger. After all, Yuna's words pretty much meant that she wasn't worried about Sasuke trying to kill her at all and instead saw it as something she could easily handle. In other words, you perceive me as no threat at all. Even though I am after your life, you are willing to let me go simply because you do not believe I could do anything against you. A kind smile appeared on Yuna's face as she answered Sasuke's question. Yes. I will kill you. Sasuke's anger burst forth as his hatred for Yuna increased even further. Susanoo. A chakra rib cage started forming around Sasuke as both of his eyes started bleeding like crazy. Then, 2 bone arms appeared, closely followed by a skeleton head, creating a complete upper torso entirely made out of bones around Sasuke. When Yuna saw that, she nodded her head with a satisfied smile on her face. So it was Susanoo and not Susan, huh? That name is still not to my taste, but I guess it's better than Susan. Chapter 378, Sasuke's Second Free Attempt Part 2. Yuna eyed the skeletal structure surrounding Sasuke with quite a bit of interest. Although she had previously seen Itachi use it, it gave off a totally different feeling now that she was facing it directly. Unaware of Yuna's thoughts, Sasuke resumed his attack and charged towards Yuna, his skeleton armor following each of his movements. He smashed his hand down to instantly squash Yuna, but before his hand could reach Yuna, a dome of ice formed above her, blocking the strike. Oh, not bad at all. You became significantly stronger and even a little faster just by activating your armor. Sasuke ignored Yuna's words and moved his other hand, trying to grab Yuna to squish her. He succeeded in his endeavor, but when he tried to squeeze Yuna to death, he knew that she dodged his attack, as the Yuna he was holding turned into ice that covered his hand. Incredible power, but just as always, it's useless if it can't hit. Sasuke swiped Susanu's arm toward where Yuna's voice was coming from, smashing it into another ice wall. Although cracks appeared on the wall, in the end, it blocked Sasuke's attack. Yuna casually landed on the shoulder of Sasuke's skeletal frame and shook her head. Simply increasing your power won't be enough to defeat me, Sasuke. Yet again, Sasuke tried smashing Yuna into bits, but before his hand could reach her, she had already vanished from his shoulder. Too slow. Stop running away. Face me, coward. Sasuke's anger increased further as nerves and muscle tissue slowly covered Susanu's body. His whole body was screaming in pain, with his eyes being especially bad, but he refused to back down. Coward. What a peculiar insult to use against a shinobi, but I will allow it. A massive ice spear crashed into Sasuke's Susanoo, causing a trickle of blood to flow out of his mouth due to the short moment of extra pressure the attack caused him. Come, Sasuke, I will show you what it means to fight me while trapped inside my domain. For a split second, some semblance of rationality reappeared on Sasuke's face when Yuna mentioned her domain. He looked around the room and noticed, to his surprise, that all the black flames were gone and the only thing that remained was a seemingly endless ice tundra. Where am I? Is this still the same room? It is, but now everything is covered in my ice. You should have paid more attention, Sasuke. Now, you are already in the stomach of the beast, and there is no longer any getting out. Sasuke's eyes widened in surprise when he heard Yuna's voice coming directly from behind him. He wanted to quickly spin around and attack her with Susanu's outstretched arm, but before the attack could hit, an ice pillar smashed into his back, sending him flying through the room and ultimately crashing him into one of the frozen walls. Sasuke coughed out some blood, and the muscles of his Susanoo faded after a short moment, but before it could vanish entirely, Sasuke regained the grip on his consciousness and pumped even more power into his eyes. He wanted to get up and continue fighting, but he noticed, to his surprise, that he couldn't move. He glanced at Susanoo's arms and saw that they were actually frozen to the wall and that the ice was slowly encroaching its whole body. Shit, Inferno style, flame control. Black flames burst forth all over Susanoo's body, freeing him from the ice and allowing him to stand back up again. His gaze wandered through the room to locate Yuna. However, instead of hiding like she previously did, she still stood at her previous location, eyeing Sasuke with indifference while leisurely having her arms crossed in front of her chest. A shiver went through Sasuke's spine as Yuna's purple eyes seemed to pierce through his very being directly into his soul. Come, Sasuke. For a split second, Sasuke could feel fear creep up his spine due to the eerie feeling Yuna was giving him, but moments later, he squashed it and prepared another attack. By now, Sasuke's Susanoo had completely formed its muscle tissue and was currently getting covered by a layer of skin, quickly followed by a layer that appeared to be clothes. Additionally, items that seemed to be a bow and arrows formed in its hands. Another point that should be mentioned was that Sasuke's Susanoo currently possessed clearly female features. Although nothing much could be seen yet, the two small mountains protruding out of its chest were clear indicators of that. Sasuke knocked the arrow into the bow and shot it at Yuna, who was still unmoving. 9 chains burst out of her back and clashed head-on with the arrow, resulting in a powerful explosion. A powerful move. Without my chains, I might not be able to stop it head-on. The dust settled, revealing Yuna's 9 chains holding Sasuke's arrow. But in the end, it's useless. Sasuke gritted his teeth as another arrow appeared in his hand. He could already feel his consciousness fading away, but he was unwilling to surrender no matter what. He knocked the next arrow into his bow and shot it towards Yuna. Additionally, some more blood started pouring out of his eyes, resulting in the arrow being set ablaze with black flames. So you are really determined to lose all of your eyesight in this fight, huh? Yuna's voice was still unbothered despite the dangerous attack flying towards her. Her ice chains vanished as her sword rematerialized in her hands. Since you are determined to fight to your last breath, I will allow you to experience it. Your death. killing intent flooded the room and crashed into Sasuke, almost causing him to faint while Yuna slashed down her sword, resulting in a massive ice slash colliding with Sasuke's arrow, cutting it in half instantly while extinguishing the black flames. Sasuke's eyes bulged out when he saw Yuna's attack easily overpowering his own. He wanted to move out of the way, but his whole body was in so much pain that he couldn't move at all, so all he could do was hope that Susanu's armor would protect him. Unfortunately, the moment the sword slash came into contact with Susanoo, it stopped for a split second before moving forward unhindered, directly slicing through Sasuke's body vertically. However, while the Susanoo was split vertically, Sasuke's body remained intact. "I only cut what I want to cut." Did you enjoy experiencing death, Sasuke? Despite having no dangerous physical wounds, Sasuke's mind was in turmoil. After all, he was certain he would have died just now. His Sharingan deactivated by itself as his whole body started trembling in fear. Although that wasn't Sasuke's first life and death experience, this was the first time that he genuinely thought that he was going to die and that nothing could change that. He didn't even notice that Yuna was walking towards him as he was staring at his hands, which he was repeatedly opening and closing as if he wanted to confirm whether his body was still capable of moving. Moments later, the flat side of Yuna's sword touched Sasuke's chin, making him flinch and forcing him to look up. The moment Yuna saw the fear in Sasuke's eyes, a deranged smile appeared on her face as she licked her lips in delight. Atilda pride and arrogance turned into fear and terror. Is there anything more delicious in this world? Sasuke's whole body trembled in fear when he saw Yuna's expression and heard her words, and moments later, he lost consciousness. Well, I wonder if there will be a third try. At least not until he gets another power-up. Indeed. Chapter 379, Why Should I Give a Shit About Your Life Goals? Moan Yuna, and not now, he is about to wake up. Hee, come on, Hinata, just a little bit. Yuna, D-Don-T. Sasuke abruptly opened his eyes while his head snapped towards where he could hear two voices coming from. Unfortunately, his whole body was still sore from overusing the Susanoo, so such an abrupt movement caused him quite some pain. Moments later, he managed to focus his eyes on the source of the voices, causing an ugly expression to appear on his face. Unlike what the voice sounded like, Hinata was currently sitting on a couch next to Anko while Yuna stood behind her with her hands on Hinata's shoulders. Yuna was currently massaging Hinata's shoulders. Hinata bit into her fist to prevent any noise from coming out of her mouth, while Anko looked at the scene with a smirk on her face. Naturally, Yuna noticed Sasuke's abrupt motion, which caused her to chuckle in amusement. Hee, what's wrong, Sasuke? Were you hoping to see something else? A mild blush appeared on Sasuke's face as the desire to attack Yuna surfaced from the back of his mind again. However, unlike the previous two times, it was squashed instantly by overwhelming fear. I was actually defeated just like that. Despite awakening the next stage of my Sharingan and even overusing its power, I lost. His face. Yeah, sorry about that, but Danzo had to go, Sasuke. He tried to do the same shit he did with the Uchiha clan to my Uzumaki clan, so I had no other choice but to kill him, slaughter his self-made organization, frame him as a traitor, and make sure that everyone who tried to help him was imprisoned for life. Sasuke opened his mouth, kept it open for a few seconds, and then quickly closed it again. Now, he at least understood why Yuna didn't mind him seeking revenge. Someone tried to move against her people, with the end result being that everything the schemer created in his life was either crushed or pushed into the dirt. Sasuke just wanted to kill his targets, but Yuna apparently wasn't satisfied with that. If she decided to take revenge on someone, she would crush their very existence instead of just killing them. Sasuke shuddered in fear when he thought back to how he considered using a hostage against Yuna after being defeated by Yuna twice. Luckily, he quickly discarded that idea, thinking it was beneath him to use such a method. Anyway, he would rather not find out what Yuna would do to him if he tried that and his attempt failed. Moments later, Sasuke started reading the next scroll. Although he was slightly unhappy that one of his targets was already dead, considering how he died and what happened afterward, he was still somewhat satisfied. Sasuke continued reading and finished the second and the third scroll, causing him to sigh in relief. At least, there were 2 targets left. He had no idea what he would have done if there were no targets left to direct his anger at. Well, Yuna was still left, but he would rather not think about that for now. I see, both of them are in Konoha's prison. Not an easy target, but it's manageable. With Susanoo, I should be able to get in there, kill them and then run away before anyone dangerous appears. I would rather not fight a whole village by myself. Yuna could more or less read Sasuke's thoughts and couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. Please don't tell me you plan to bulldoze your way into Konoha's prison and kill those 2. Sasuke's facial expression became awkward as he looked away from Yuna, Hinata, and Enka, causing the trio's faces to be deadpan. Aren't you a shinobi? You should work on getting rid of that one-track mind of yours. Sasuke was somewhat unhappy with Yuna's criticism, so he crossed his arms in front of his chest while giving her an annoyed look. What else am I supposed to? Fine, I will explain it to you. Somehow, this turned into a babysitting Sasuke while patiently walking him through every little step of the solution. When Yuna gave Itachi her guarantee that Sasuke won't become Konoha's enemy, she never expected the whole matter to be this troublesome. After all, even if they were prisoners, barging straight into Konoha's prison and killing people would definitely make Sasuke a genuinely wanted criminal, unlike his current self, which was kind of wanted by Konoha, but not as a criminal. Sasuke, tell me what crimes you have currently committed for Konoha to see you as a traitor. Although Sasuke was confused by Yuna's sudden unexpected question, he nonetheless answered her. I have left the village without permission. Correct. So, what exemplary deeds have you done for Konoha since you left? Sasuke grew even more confused by Yuna's next question as question marks appeared above his head. None. Ron, you defeated and killed 2 of Konoha's S-rank missing nin, Orochimaru and Itachi. If you were to come back to Konoha right now, you would be welcomed with open arms. I don't care AB. Yeah, you don't care about being acknowledged as a hero or whatever. That much is obvious. But, would you rather live the rest of your life being hunted down by Konoha or as someone who could walk in public without dozens of people chasing you down every single hour of your life? A somber facial expression appeared on Sasuke's face as he realized what Yuna was talking about. Obviously, he wouldn't care about becoming the enemy of the world for the sake of his revenge, but if there was an option to prevent it, he would choose it if it didn't hinder his revenge. What do you suggest I do? Surprisingly, Sasuke asked Yuna a proper question instead of ordering her to reveal what she had in mind, showcasing that breaking someone's mind was the best way to make someone behave to Yuna again. Usually I'm not a fan of delivering a step-by-step explanation, but fine. First, break into Konoha's prison without being noticed. You have the Manjikyu Sharingan. If you can't even do that much, please kill yourself right now. After contemplating for a short moment, Sasuke nodded his head in agreement. For some reason, his thoughts immediately went to storming the prison in full force instead of using stealth, which would be significantly easier. Second, find those 2 and free them while convincing them that you want their help in getting revenge against me. Do not let them know that you are aware of their involvement in the Uchiha massacre and tell them some nonsense about wanting to use their old people's wisdom to get your revenge against me or some shit like that. As soon as you start praising those 2 senile fools, they will happily cooperate with you, thinking how awesome they are for tricking the last Uchiha into helping them. For some reason, Sasuke got goosebumps when he heard Yuna's words. Somehow, he got the impression that a devil was currently whispering into his ears. Third, lead them out of Konoha, kill them, and then put Akatsuki robes on them. Don't worry, I have a few spare ones. I love organizations that wear uniform clothing. So easy to frame tilde. By now, Sasuke's whole body was trembling in fear as he realized that simply killing those two elders was very far from what Yuna planned for them. Fourth, Akatsuki will attack Konoha sooner or later to get their hands on the Kyuubi. As soon as they attack, sweep in and help during combat, spouting some patriotic nonsense about the wall of fire or whatever, and present the corpse of the two elders after the fight is over, claiming that they joined Akatsuki and helped Akatsuki infiltrate Konoha. By now, Sasuke was pretty sure that he was somehow trapped in some kind of genjutsu, as he could see two large horns protruding out of Yuna's head, but no matter what he did, he couldn't get out of it. Although I think it is rather obvious, don't claim that part in private. The more people see the two elders dressed in Akatsuki robes, the better. Finally, return to Konoha as one of its heroes. A hero who left the village due to personal circumstances but returned to defend it at a moment of crisis. Any questions, Sasuke? Sasuke had a lot of questions. For example, he would like to know why Yuna could use ice despite her rather infernal lineage, but decided that he would rather not ask any question to the demon in front of him and only obediently shook his head. Ha ha ha, very good, off you go. Don't forget to rub what you were about to do into the faces of those two before killing them. You might as well try to make them die of anger while you are at it. Trust me on this one, making someone die of anger is significantly more enjoyable than just killing them. As soon as Sasuke heard Yuna's words that clearly dismissed him, he stood up and fled. Koff walked out of the room with slow and measured steps. Damn, somehow, that turned me on. Yuna glanced at Anko after she said those words and noticed that she was fidgeting around while there was a light blush on Hinata's face, causing Yuna to nod in acknowledgement. You are welcome. And then, the trio vanished from where they previously sat due to Yuna teleporting them away.